Exclusive videos, story continuations, and bonus content are already available on Patreon before YouTube, so check the link in the description for early access to all new recaps and continuations.
Wayne died on Thursday. The press at the factory in Dortmund came down half a second too early. A crunch. Darkness. Then light. Not the soft light described in stories about the afterlife. The dirty yellow light of a tallow candle. The smell of smoke and wet straw. A ceiling of blackened planks. A small, frail body. He was 6 years old in this body. For 14 years he remained silent. He studied the language, the laws, and the workings of the world. He listened and memorized. The Kingdom of Veltarn. Magic belongs to those born into the right family. Aristocrats and mages, the same people. Commoners work with their hands and die young. The Mages Guild controls everything. Every blacksmith pays a tax for the right to swing a hammer. The law is simple. Only magic can drive progress. Any mechanism without magic is heresy. There is only one punishment: the stake. The law is 300 years old. In all that time, the world hasn't moved an inch. The same carts, the same plows, the same bent and crooked nails. Father Darren was the best blacksmith in 3 villages until he broke his leg. Now he limped and struck the anvil more slowly. Brother Mark had worked in the Baron's mine since he was 15. He coughed every evening. For the past month, red spots had remained on the rag after he coughed. No one spoke of it aloud. Sister Ella sold at the market what Father had forged during the week. 20 nails, 3 horseshoes, 1 hinge. Ella had a way with words so that people bought even what they didn't need. But there was nothing to sell. The family owed the Baron 14 gold coins. That's the price of 3 horses, or a whole lifetime if you work like Darren. The system appeared on the day of his rebirth. A blue drafting table in his head, rulers and set squares and templates, a holographic workbench. It called itself God's Workshop. The first message: welcome. You are candidate number 8. The previous 7 are dead. Try to last longer. Material analysis. You can look at any object and see its composition, strength, hidden properties, blueprint, a 3D model in your head. But the system didn't design for him. He had to think for himself. Master points. Every object earns points. Points unlock levels: bronze, iron, steel, mithril, divine. Leveling up his hands. Motor skills improve with each level, but his body remains ordinary. Wayne is weaker than any peasant, a limitation. Nothing comes from thin air. Real materials and time are needed. Wayne waited 14 years. He studied every stone, every tree, every piece of ore. He mapped out the resources. He designed hundreds of blueprints. He waited for the moment. The moment came on Monday. Mark said that Baron Sigurd had doubled the taxes. Darren froze. Ella dropped her spoon. 14 gold pieces at the old tax rate. They'd have paid that off in 3 years. 28 at the new rate. They'd never pay it off. The deadline is 1 month, then debt slavery. Mark said half the village was in the same situation. 200 people, and every other one owed more than they'd earn in a lifetime. Darren was silent. He looked at his hands. Big, rough hands that could no longer work as fast as they needed to. Wayne stood up. He walked over to the workbench. He picked up a piece of iron. The system kicked into gear. Analysis. Iron. Carbon, 0.3%. Sulfur impurities. Suitable. He placed the bar on the anvil. He picked up the hammer. Darren told him to step back. Wayne didn't turn around. He struck. The system suggested the angle, the temperature, the force, each blow more precise than the last. 20 minutes later, a nail lay on the anvil, straight, smooth, without a single flaw. Darren had been forging nails for 30 years. His best was good. This one was perfect. Darren picked up the nail, turned it between his fingers, said nothing. The system flashed. Perfect nail. Master glasses +1. Bronze level 0. Progress 0.3% toward the steam engine. Message below. Not bad. You've invented something that was invented in your world 4,000 years ago. Be proud. Wayne smiled. He turned to his father and said he had a plan. Darren hadn't slept all night. Wayne heard his father pacing around the smithy. A step, the tap of a wooden block. In the morning, he sat down across from him and asked how Wayne knew how to forge. Wayne replied that he had learned by watching for 14 years. Darren looked at him for a long time. He said that watching didn't explain how to make a perfect nail on the first try. Wayne said nothing. Neither did Darren. Then he stood up and said they had 29 days. If there was a plan, he was listening. The problem with the forge was simple. One man, one hammer, one bellows. Darren pumped the bellows with his foot and struck with the hammer in his hand. Both were poor. First sketch. A double bellows with a foot pump. 2 leather bags connected by a lever. A constant flow of air. Hands free. Wayne explained it to his father. Without a word about the other world, just a sketch drawn with a stick on the dirt floor. Ella got 2 goatskins in half a day. She talked to old Henrik, who owed her money for horseshoes. She came back with the skins and a pot of goat fat to boot. Mark brought ash wood from the forest. They built it in 2 days. Wayne designed it. The system displayed the model, the pedal load calculation, 70 kilograms. The ash wood would hold. Darren made the hinges and fasteners. Wayne stood nearby and guided him. A little thinner, 0.5 millimeter thicker, a 45-degree angle. Darren frowned at first. Then he stopped, because every instruction made sense. By the evening of the second day, the bellows were ready. The flame turned from yellow to white. 1 nail in 4 minutes instead of 10. The system, double pedal bellows, plus 5 points, 1 bronze, new feature. Improved analysis, internal metal structure, cracks, voids. Wayne looked at Darren's hammer, 3 micro cracks at the base. It'll break in 100 strikes, he told his father. Darren checked, found the crack, looked at his son, remained silent again. On the third day, they made 60 nails. The usual quota is 20. Ella counted them, 3 silver coins a day, but not 14 gold coins. 1 gold coin is worth 100 silver coins. 28 gold coins is 2,800. At 60 nails a day, it would take them 3 years. They had 27 days. Wayne knew this from the very beginning. The nails were just a warm-up. The next blueprint was already waiting. A lathe, a wooden frame, a foot-powered drive, a hardened iron cutter. Wayne explained the principle. The workpiece rotates. The cutter removes a layer, a perfectly round part. Bolts, axles, bushings. Everything that magicians do here for 10 gold pieces. They worked on it for 4 days. Mark built the frame. Wayne checked every joint. A 2 millimeter deviation. Too much. Rework it. Mark cursed. Then he reworked it. Darren hardened the cutter according to Wayne's instructions. 800 degrees. Quenched in oil. Tempered at 300. The result was twice as hard as usual. On the 7th day, the machine started working. 5 minutes later, Wayne held a perfectly round shaft in his hands. 20 centimeters. Smooth as magic. Ella said that furniture makers buy these for 5 silver pieces. Mages pay 10. If they make 24 a day, that's gold. Wayne nodded. But that wasn't the point. He looked at the family. He said they needed more than one machine. They need people, raw materials, a space. Mark asked what he was talking about. Wayne answered with one word. Factory. The system flashed. Lathe, +12, bronze 2, message, lathe. The Egyptians invented it 3,000 years ago. You spent a week. Impressive speed. Ella went to the market in Crosstown before dawn. A 3-hour walk. A basket with 30 nails and 10 rollers. Wayne told her not to sell everything at once. Show them. Let them touch it. Compare it. Ella smiled and said she wasn't new to selling. She returned in the evening. The basket was empty. 3 gold and 7 silver. The nails went for 2 copper each, twice the price of the usual ones. The furniture maker Olson took the rollers, all 10 for 4 silver each. He ordered 50 more for next week. Olson said the mages were worse off. Darren stared at the coins without blinking. 3 gold coins a day. He used to earn 3 in 4 months. Wayne did the math. 50 rollers a week is 200 silver coins, plus the nails, 8 or 9 gold coins a month. Good, but not enough. 28 gold coins, 25 days. He needed more. In the morning, Wayne went to see old Thomas. Thomas lived on the edge of the village in a house that hadn't been repaired in 30 years. He was 70. He'd come to Greyhall 40 years ago. Alone, with no past. He could fix anything. He worked in silence and never spoke of where he came from. Wayne knew where he came from. 40 years ago, the Mages Guild burned down the village of Hallmark. 300 people. The reason? A windmill. 1 man survived. A young engineer, 25 years old, who hid in a well while his world burned above him. Thomas opened the door. His eyes were old, tired, but sharp. Wayne said he'd come to talk about windmills. Silence. A long one. Then Thomas stepped back and let him in. The house was cramped, but under the table and on the shelves, there were blueprints everywhere. Hundreds of sheets, mechanisms, gears, water wheels. Thomas had been drawing for 40 years. Alone. In secret. Not a single drawing ever became reality. Wayne looked and saw mistakes. Dozens of them. Not because Thomas was stupid, because he was working blindly, without a system, without an engineering education from another world. Thomas was a genius without tools. Wayne picked up a drawing of a water wheel. Good design, but the axle is too thin. He said it out loud. Thomas flinched. Wayne added that the axle needed to be a third thicker, and that instead of a bearing, a bushing with an oil channel was needed. Thomas sat down slowly. He asked who had taught him. Wayne told a partial truth, that he could see the structure of materials and the load. Since childhood, he doesn't know why. Thomas was silent for 2 minutes. Then he asked why he had come. Wayne said he was building a workshop, that the Baron had raised taxes, that the village had 25 days left, that he needed a man who knew more than any blacksmith. Thomas replied that the last time he built something, 300 people burned to death. Wayne replied that he knew, and that this time it would be different, because they wouldn't be building in plain sight. They would build a factory, and by the time the guild found out, it would be too late. Thomas pulled out the largest blueprint, a water turbine, rough, with errors, but a workable idea. He said he'd been drawing it for 20 years. Wayne looked it over on the system. 12 errors. The foundation was sound. He said they'd have it built in 3 months. They returned to the smithy together. That evening, Wayne sat down with Ella to do the math. They needed a breakthrough. Ella named 5 people willing to work. Wayne said to call them. A silver coin a day. Ella froze. A silver coin a day for a peasant is like a gold coin for a city dweller. She asked where the money was coming from. Wayne replied that first came work, then money. In the morning, 6 people arrived, 5 from the list and 1 who hadn't been called. Rena, the daughter of a merchant from Crosstown, 18 years old, sharp eyes. She arrived with an empty cart and said she'd heard about a workshop that makes things like magicians do, but cheaper. The furniture maker Olson can't keep his mouth shut. Wayne showed her the lathe. Rena wasn't looking at the lathe. She was looking at the principle. She asked why the workpiece rotates and not the cutter. Wayne froze. It was an engineering question. He replied that it was more efficient that way. Rena asked what if both were rotated toward each other. Wayne figured it out. He built a model. Processing speed would increase by a factor of 1.5. The load on the cutter would be cut in half. He said she needed a spot in the workshop. Rena smiled and replied that that was why she'd come. The second machine in 2 days. The third in a day and a half. Thomas learned instantly. Show him once, and he remembered it forever. Wayne modified the fourth machine based on Rena's idea. Counter rotation, 2 pulleys, belt drive. The processing speed increased by a factor of 1.5. Rena learned to operate the machine in an hour. She sharpened the rollers more evenly than the 2 new workers. The smithy had become cramped. 4 machines and 6 people were getting in each other's way. An old barn stood nearby. The roof was full of holes. The walls were crooked, but the foundation was granite, solid. The barn belonged to the village. The village was run by the mayor, Berger, a fat, cautious man who feared anything that might anger the Baron. Ella negotiated a deal. 1 silver coin a month plus roof repairs. 3 days for the repairs. Wayne designed the layout of the machines. A production line. Raw materials go in one end. Finished products come out the other. Each machine, 1 operation. Henry Ford would have cried with laughter. But for this world, it was a bolt from the blue. The 5th machine Wayne built was for Darren. A forging press with a lever amplifier. A long lever. The hammer strikes with 5 times the force. Darren pressed with 1 hand and got the force of 2 blacksmiths. His leg didn't get in the way. His back didn't hurt. Darren stood in front of the press. His eyes were red. He wasn't crying. Blacksmiths don't cry. He said that in 30 years, no tool had changed his work, and his son did it in 2 weeks. The system, the forging press, +8. A bonus for mass production +15, bronze 4. The 3rd week, 5 machines, 8 workers, 200 nails a day, 30 rollers, 20 sets of buckles. Ella and Rena went to Crosstown every other day. 1 gold piece a day, sometimes 1.5. By the 20th day, 15 gold pieces, half the debt. The Baron will demand everything in 10 days. Wayne sat over the blueprints at night. He needs a product for gold, not silver. Locks. A pin tumbler lock. 5 pins, a brass mechanism, an iron casing, a key with a unique groove. In his world, 20 euros. Here, it's priceless, because it doesn't exist. Ella took 3 locks to Crosstown. She came back with 12 gold pieces, 4 per piece. The head of the Merchants Guild bought them personally. He tested it for an hour. Couldn't open it without the key. He ordered 20 more at 5 gold each. 100 gold for 20 locks. Cost price, 4 silver. Profit, 4 gold per lock. 15 in hand. 5 locks in 10 days is another 20. Total, 35. Debt, 28. 7 left for development. For the first time in 3 weeks, Wayne exhaled. He was sitting in a dark workshop that smelled of oil and shavings, just like the factory in Dortmund. Only candles instead of lamps, pedals instead of electric motors. But the smell was the same. The smell of production. The system. A pin tumbler lock, +20. Iron one, new feature, steel processing, 4 times the strength. Message. You've moved from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age. In your world, it took 2,000 years. You have 3 weeks. Pause. Don't relax. The previous candidate reached the Iron Age in 2 weeks. Then they burned him. Baron Sigurd arrived a day early. A carriage, 4 guards. Greyhall hadn't seen that many horses in a year. The Baron was a tall, gaunt man with eyes that seemed to calculate the worth of every house and every person. Wayne was waiting by the smithy. Ella had 29 gold pieces in her pocket, 28 for the debt. The Baron asked where Darren was. Wayne replied that he was in the workshop, working. The Baron raised an eyebrow. Wayne decided to show him everything. There was no point in hiding it. Berger had seen it. The workers had seen it. The merchants had seen the products. Better on his own terms. They entered the barn. 5 machines in a row, 8 workers. Darren at the forging press. Clang, clang, clang. Bundles of nails on the shelves, rollers sorted by size, locks wrapped in an oiled rag. The Baron stopped at the entrance. His eyes took stock. He walked over to the machine. He watched as a worker sharpened a roller. He picked up a finished one. He turned it over. He walked over to the locks. He tried to open one. He turned the key. Click. He was silent for 3 minutes. He asked how much the lock cost. 5 gold pieces. How many to make? 4 silver pieces. The Baron blinked. Once. 1,000% profit margin. He asked who was buying them. Ella replied that it was the head of the Merchants Guild. Orders for a month in advance. Then the Baron asked the main question. What kind of machines were they? And did the guild know about them? Wayne said they were tools, not machines. A hammer is a tool. A lathe is too, just a complex one. The Baron understood the line was thin, but the Baron was greedy. Wayne had counted on that. The Baron asked for the plan. Wayne replied, expansion, 10 times the revenue in 6 months. The Baron asked for a cut. Wayne said 20%. The Baron said 30%. They settled on 25%. The Baron added that if the guild came, he knew nothing, just an ordinary smithy. Ella handed over 28 gold pieces. Then the Baron approached quietly. He said that his neighbor, Baron Reinhold, had tried 3 years ago to set up production without magic. The guild found out. Reinhold is no longer a baron. His lands were confiscated. His family is in exile. It's best to be careful. He left. Wayne watched as the dust settled. 25% is a lot. But the Baron's protection is time, and time means machinery. That evening he gathered everyone. He said the debt was paid off. Now they needed to grow, fast. He laid out the plan on the board. A second workshop, a smelting furnace, a water-powered hammer, their own mine. The system had detected ore deposits 200 meters from the road. Depth, 4 meters. Enough for 2 years. Mark asked how he knew about the ore. Wayne replied that he'd seen outcrops. Mark said nothing, because Wayne hadn't been wrong once yet. Rena asked about the competition. If they produced it cheaper than the mages would lose clients. And the mages were the guild. Wayne nodded. That's exactly why they should sell through middlemen. No name, no traces. For now. Rena said it was a temporary measure. Sooner or later they'd be tracked down. Wayne replied that by then they should be big enough. When everyone had left, Thomas stayed behind. He said quietly that 40 years ago in Hallmark it had been the same. The workshop, the customers, the money, the confidence, and then the fire. Wayne replied that there was one difference. In Hallmark, there was no plan. There was a mill and hope, but there was no plan. Thomas said that confidence is the first thing to kill you. Wayne replied that he wasn't sure. He was scared every day. But without the machines, Mark will die in the mine. Darren will drink himself to death. Ella will marry the first man who asks, and the village will continue to rot. Thomas looked at him for a long time. He said that the guy from Hallmark who built the mill had the same look on his face, the same foolishness, and the same righteousness. Then he left. Wayne was left alone. The system was silent. On the drawing board glowed the design he had been drawing for 14 years. A water wheel. The first step toward true mechanization. The river's energy, constant, powerful, free. Iron level 1. 3% away from a steam engine. He is 20 years old. He is a former dead man. He owns a factory with 5 machines in a village of 200 people. Behind him stand his lame father, a brother who coughs up blood, and a sister who calculates profitability in her head faster than an accountant. Against him stands the guild, which burns people for their mills. Between them stands a single greedy baron. Wayne smiled in the darkness. Then he fell asleep. The mine began dig on the day after the baron's namels. Mark chose the spot. Wayne pointed the direction. The system showed the vein as a glowing line in the under the earth. 4 meters down, then to southeast. Ore of purity. Iron 42%. The rest is rock. Processing. Mark gathered 4 of miners the Baron who remained without work after the closure lower tunnels. Healthy men, silent, familiar to the dark and dust. Mark said them that they silver in a day and feed twice. They didn't ask for details. Silver in that is twice more than the Baron. They dug by hand, picks and shovels. The soil soft first 2 meters, clay and sand, then stone. On stone the pickaxe became for hour. Wayne made new ones, hardened according the system. The tom of 37 degrees, steel with a 0.06%. The pickaxe held 3 days instead of 3 hours. The miners noticed. One of them named Grant touched the blade of the taw and said that 20 years in the mine not seen such metal. I asked who forged it. Mark replied that brother. Grant looked at Mark, then at the pickaxe. He remained silent. On 5th day they start the vein. The ore came in chunks about a fist. Dark, heavy. Wayne checked the system. Contents of 44%. Better than expected. Manganese of manganese 2%. That good. Manganese makes steel stronger. The first ton of ore was to the surface in a week. Processing was a problem. We need oven, not gorn. A furnace melts 10 kilograms at a time. You need a ladle. Wayne designed it in overnight. A clay mine kiln with a height 2 meters high. At the bottom there is for air. At the top, ore and coal in layers. Temperature 200 degrees. Output crystal. Iron sponge, which is then entreed into strips. In the teemt of such furnaces stood in every village in the Middle Ages. Hear them there. That's that the smelted ore with a spell. Faster, cleaner, more expensive than 1,000 times. Thomas built the oven. He mixed clay with sand and straw and put in the walls layer by layer. Each layer dries 2 days. Wayne thought the time. A week on construction, another week for drying, 2 weeks for baking is a long time. But other options. For now the oven was drying, was the lathes, the 6th machine. Drilling machine, vertical column, belt drive from pedal. Drill made hardened steel. For locks require precise holes. Until now, drilled by hand, slowly. Drilling machine will speed up the production locks 3-fold. The 7th machine, grinding machine, abrasive wheel made sandstone. Foot-operated drive, for finishing rollers and axles. 8th machine, winding machine, for springs. Springs are needed for locks of the generation, for watch movements, for all that ahead. The system flashed after the 8th machine. Mass of equipment. Bonus master points plus 30. Current level, iron 3. New function, design gears. Ween discovered new drawings. Gears, gear ratios, mechanical advantages. This changed everything. Until this, every machine has separate pedal. One person, one pedal, one machine. With gear you can be used machines. One drive, multiple machines. Need a common source. A water wheel. Wayne pulled out Thomas's blueprint. A water turbine. 20 years of the old man's work. 12 mistakes. Now Wayne had access to the gears. He could fix all 12. He worked for 3 nights. During the day he managed the workshop. At night, he designed. The system displayed the model in his mind. A wheel 3 meters in diameter, 12 blades, an oak frame, an iron axle, 2 bearings with oil channels, a gear ratio of 4:1. The output power was sufficient to drive 6 machines simultaneously. Problem: the river. The nearest river was 1.5 miles from the village. The stream was closer, 400 meters. But the stream wouldn't have enough power. Wayne studied the stream through the system. Water flow, 120 liters per minute. The elevation drop is 2 meters over a 50-meter stretch, enough for a wheel with a diameter of 1.5 meters. The power is half the calculated amount, enough for 3 machines, not 6. But 3 machines without pedals means 3 people freed up. 3 people who can do other work. Wayne made his decision. We'll build on the stream. Then we'll expand to the river, he told Thomas. Thomas looked at the revised drawing and didn't move. Then he took a piece of chalk and pointed to one detail, the blade mounting. He said that Wayne had put in a bolt, but a wedge was needed. The bolt would loosen from the vibration. A wedge will hold it tight. Wayne checked it through the system. Thomas was right. The vibration from the water flow would loosen the bolted joint in 2 weeks. A wedge would last a year. Wayne corrected the drawing. He looked at Thomas. He said those 20 years hadn't been in vain. Thomas didn't answer, but he stood up straight. 1/2 centimeter. The workers dug a channel from the stream to the wheel's installation site. 200 meters. Hard work. Rena organized it. She divided the 200 meters into 10 sections. Each section was 20 meters. Each section had its own person. The quota was 3 meters a day. Whoever finished faster helped their neighbor. A week later, the channel was ready. Wayne noticed how Rena worked. She wasn't digging, she was managing, counting, assigning tasks. She was doing what, in Wayne's world, was called management, and she did it as if she'd been born for it. He asked Rena where she'd learned it. Rena replied that she'd learned it from her father in his shop. Trade isn't just about selling, it's about logistics, accounting, and task allocation. Her father managed 20 suppliers from 6 cities. She'd been helping him since she was 12. Wayne thought that in a world without universities or business schools, a merchant's shop was the best education one could get. The furnace had dried out by the end of the 3rd week. They conducted the first smelting in the evening. They loaded the ore and charcoal in layers. They lit the fire. A double bellows supplied air. The temperature rose. The gauge showed 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200. Enough. 6 hours later, Wayne opened the bottom vent. A chunk of pig iron the size of a child's head tumbled out of the furnace. White hot. Darren grabbed it with tongs. He placed it on the anvil of the forging press. He struck it. Sparks flew up to the ceiling. Slag bounced off in chunks. Beneath the slag lay pure iron. 12 kilograms per melt. That's enough for 40 locks, or 800 nails, or 20 sets of machine parts. Mark stood by the furnace and looked at the pig iron, then at his hands, then at Wayne. He said he'd hauled ore for the Baron for 10 years for 3 pennies a day, and now they were smelting iron themselves, in their own furnace, from their own ore. Mark wasn't smiling. He never smiled, but his voice was different. Ella had updated the calculations. The cost of iron from their own ore in their own furnace was 2 silver coins per kilogram. They used to buy it from the mages for 20, a 10-fold difference. That meant each lock now cost not 4 silver coins, but 2. Profits were rising. Orders were rising. A month after they started, they had 20 workers, 12 in the workshop, 4 in the mine, 2 on the canal construction, 2 preparing charcoal. Rena was in charge. Ella was selling. Thomas was designing under Wayne's guidance. Darren was forging. Mark was managing the mine. Greyhall was rotating shifts. People who previously had no work now earned a silver coin a day. They bought food, they repaired roofs, they bought clothes. The tavern was open every day. Berger counted the tax revenue and couldn't believe his records. The village was earning more than ever before in its entire history, and this was only the beginning. The system hummed quietly. Iron level 3, 5% to go until the steam engine, 95 to go. Wayne didn't sleep. 3 hours a day. The rest of the time was work, design, supervision, blueprints, calculations. He was losing weight. His hands trembled by evening, not from pumping, from exhaustion. Rena was the first to notice. She came to him at night in the workshop while he was poring over the blueprints. She said that if he died, everything would stop, that they didn't have a second Wayne, and that he had to sleep at least 5 hours. Wayne looked at her. He wanted to argue. Then he realized she was right. He was the only point of failure. If he broke down, the system wouldn't help. The system was a tool, not a replacement. He went to sleep. For the first time in a week, for more than 3 hours, and he dreamed of a river, and a wheel, and the hum of gears, and a world that had stopped standing still. Water wheel was for first day of month, in the morning. It was. It's dark. Mark and Grant opened the damper on the canal. Water gushed down the gutter and hit the blades. The wheel wobbled. It creaked. Slowly turned a quarter turn. Then again. And more. Faster. Smoother. Gear took over the rotation. The belts tightened. 3 machines in the new workshop came to life at the same time, without pedals, without legs, without effort. The workers stood and watched. No one of them had seen how the mechanism worked myself. One of them, by named Bran, retreated a step and crossed himself. The other asked, "Is alive?" Ella stood in the doorway. She didn't ask. Alive. It, she thought. 3 machines are without people. 3 people were released. Each of them can now operate the machine instead of pedaling. Productivity doubles. No, it triples. Because the wheel doesn't get tired. Pedals get tired after an hour. The wheel turns as long as the water flows. Wayne walked up to the wheel. He placed his hand on the frame. Vibration. Steady. Constant. Like the pulse of a living creature. Only this isn't alive. It's physics. The energy of falling water converted into rotation via the blades and transmitted through a gear train to the drive shaft. The simplest design. It's 3,000 years old in his world. Here, it was a miracle. The system flashed. The mechanism was created. A water wheel with a gear transmission. Master points plus 45. Bonus for the first non-magical energy source plus 20. Current level, Iron 5. New function, Advanced Design. Now you can calculate complex kinematic chains, multi-stage transmissions, cam mechanisms, ratchets. Message below. Water wheel. 3,000 years ago, people in your world figured this out. You repeated it. Next step in 1,000 years. Steam engine. 10% progress. Good luck. The first week with the wheel changed everything. Productivity skyrocketed. 300 nails a day instead of 200, 50 rollers, 10 locks a week. Ella couldn't keep up with sales. Rena suggested opening a second sales channel. Not Crosstown, a bigger city. Murden, a 2-day journey by cart, the capital of the barony. 20,000 people. It has its own market, its own merchants, its own needs. Wayne agreed. Rena went herself. She took a wagon with samples, locks, nails, rollers, buckles, a new product. Door hinges with a hinge mechanism, smooth, silent. They don't squeak. They don't rust because Wayne coated them with a thin layer of oil sealed with wax. Rena returned in 5 days, with orders for 80 gold pieces. 80. Ella dropped the pen she was using to write down the numbers. Then she picked it up and wrote them down again. Then she counted them over. Then she looked at Rena and said she would stay. Rena didn't understand. Ella explained that she needed a sales partner. Ella knows Crosstown. Rena knows Murden. Together, they'll cover both markets. Rena agreed. Wayne watched and said nothing. 2 months ago, Ella was selling crooked nails at the farmer's market. Now she was building a sales network. He thought about how the system gave him engineering skills, but no system improved the people around him. They were just the way they were. Ella was born a merchant. Rena was born a manager. Mark was born a miner. Darren was born a blacksmith. Thomas was born an engineer. They were simply never given a chance. Second month, 15 workers in the workshops, 4 in the mine, 3 maintaining the wheel and the canal, 2 couriers. Rena managed logistics. Ella handled sales. 35 people depended directly or indirectly on the workshop, 1/6 of the village. Revenues were growing, 5 gold pieces a day, minus the cost of materials and wages. Net profit, 2 gold pieces, 25% to the Baron, 1.5 gold pieces net, 45 gold pieces a month. In the second month, Wayne earned more than the entire village had in the previous year. He reinvested everything. The third workshop, specialized, locks only, 2 workers, 1 drilling machine, 1 winding machine, 1 assembly table, assembly line production. Each lock goes through 4 operations, 1 person per operation. The production time for a single lock dropped from 5 hours to 2. A new product. Scales. Commercial scales accurate to the gram. In this world, only mages made precise scales. They cost 50 gold. Wayne made mechanical ones. A balance beam, steel weights, agate prisms for support. Accuracy, 1 gram. Cost, 2 gold pieces. Selling price, 15. Ella sold the first batch of 5 in an hour. The head of the Crosstown Merchants Guild bought 2. Money changers bought 3. They ordered 20 more. The system didn't stop. Every new mechanism earned points. Every new level unlocked new possibilities. Iron 7. Then 8. At the 8th level, a section Wayne had been waiting for since day 1 unlocked. A steam engine blueprint. Incomplete. 10%. Sketches. A schematic diagram. But this was the beginning. Wayne looked at the blueprint in his mind and saw the future. A piston, a cylinder, a valve system, a connecting rod, a flywheel. Every detail demanded a precision he didn't yet possess. He needed steel, not iron, steel. For that, he needed a furnace of a different caliber. A crucible furnace, a temperature of 1500 degrees, carbon content of 1 to 1.5%, controlled cooling. He was designing the crucible furnace when there was a knock at the workshop door. Night, 3 o'clock. A loud knock. Wayne opened the door. Berger was standing on the threshold. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. Berger said a man had arrived in the village, from the city, in a black cloak, with a silver emblem on his chest. The emblem of the Mages Guild. Wayne froze. Then he asked where he was. Berger replied that he was in the tavern, drinking beer, asking about the smithy that makes things just as good as the mages. Wayne closed the blueprint in his mind. He looked at the workshop, at the machines, at the wheel behind the wall, turning steadily in the darkness. 2 months. He thought he had more time. He was wrong. Wayne didn't go to tavern. He went to Thomas. The old man wasn't asleep. He sat at the table and drew by candlelight. When Wayne said about the man with the inner challenge, the Thomas put aside chalk. Hands stopped shaking, as if my body knew that shiver anymore. Time of precision. Thomas asked one if he... Wayne replied that Berger had seen one. Thomas said that a scout, not inquisitor. Inquisitors do come alone. Inquisitors come in threes. The red cloaks. With seals. With soldiers. Scout is the eyes and ears, his task to look and report. If he sees machines, then in a week will arrive those three. Wayne asked what to do. Thomas said to hide it. That's it. Now. They lifted Mark and Grant and 4 employees who lived at the workshop. 6 people. 2 hours before dawn. Machines cannot. They're big. But it is possible to disguise it. Water wheel. Wayne removed the belts, disconnected the gear. Without gear. This is just a wheel. A mill wheel. For grain. Mills are prohibited. Only mechanisms. Lathes. Wayne removed the cutters. Without cutters, the machine is a wooden frame with a pedal. Nothing. Junk. A press. Removed lever amplifier. Without the amplifier, it just anvil with a stand. Drilling. I took the drill bit and the guide. The post. Winding. I removed the mandrel and clamp. The board with drawings Thomas hid under the floor in his house. All key details. Chisels, drill bits, gears, belts. Wayne put in a baw and carried to mine. He lowered on a rope into the debour, in the drift which Mark began to drill last week. Locks and scales hid Ella. She lifted the board floor in the dath and put a bag with finished products in the pit. Covered it with dirt. Put the board back. By dawn, the workshop looked different. A dirty barn with wooden junk. Darren's smithy with a forge and an anvil. Bags of coal. Nothing suspicious. Vane had no doubt that a professional inquisitor would see the traces. Oil on the floor. Shavings in the corners. The smell of metal that isn't found in an ordinary barn. But a scout isn't an inquisitor. A scout looks for the obvious. Flags, not traces. A man appeared in the morning. Wayne saw him from the smithy. Of average height. Thin. A black traveling cloak. A silver eye-shaped medallion on a chain. The eye of the guild. A symbol of surveillance. He walked through the village slowly. He looked at the houses, at the people, at the road. He stopped by the well. He took a sip of water. He walked on. Berger scurried alongside him and talked non-stop. Wayne knew Berger. When Berger was nervous, he talked a lot and fast. That was both good and bad. Good because the stream of words could be a distraction. Bad because Berger might say something he shouldn't. The man approached the smithy. Wayne was standing at the entrance. Darren was hammering inside. The usual blows, the usual rhythm, nails, just like 30 years ago. The man looked at Wayne, gray eyes, attentive, calm. He asked if this was Darren's smithy. Wayne replied that it was. The man asked if he could come in. Wayne stepped back. The man entered. He looked at the bellows, the anvil, a double bellows. He stopped at the bellows, looked at the pedal, at the lever, at the 2 leather bags. Wayne waited. The bellows were the only thing he had left. Because a double bellows isn't a mechanism, it's a tool. The blacksmith's bellows had existed for 1,000 years. Wayne had simply improved the design. The man asked Darren how long he'd had a bellows like that. Darren didn't stop. He kept hammering. He answered between blows. He said his son had helped him remodel it. The man asked if that was his son. He pointed at Wayne. Darren nodded. The man turned to Wayne. He asked what he did. Wayne replied that he helps his father in the smithy. The man asked if the smithy makes anything besides nails and horseshoes. Wayne replied that sometimes they make hinges and staples, just the usual stuff. The man nodded. Then he walked toward the barn. Wayne followed him. His heart was beating steadily. He didn't let himself get nervous. Nervousness is a sign of guilt. The man opened the barn door. Empty. Wooden frames against the walls, bags, straw. He walked inside, looked at the floor. Wayne saw his eyes stop on an oil stain, round, dark, under the spot where the lathe had stood. The man crouched down. He touched the stain with his finger. He sniffed it. Machine oil, not vegetable, not animal. Mineral-based oil that Wayne made from an oil seep 3 kilometers from the village. He mixed it with wax and chalk for viscosity. No. Such oil existed in this world. The man straightened up. He looked at Wayne for a long time. Then he asked what was stored here. Wayne replied that it was grain after the harvest. It was empty now. The man looked at the stain again, then at the frames along the walls, then at the ceiling where a hook for lifting sacks hung. The hook to which, just yesterday, the drive belt from the water wheel had been tied. Wayne noticed a strand of the belt on the hook. One, thin, invisible to the naked eye. But a man with the guild's mark does not have a naked eye. The man did not look at the hook. Or he looked and did not notice. Or he noticed it and didn't show it. He stepped out of the barn, stood in the street, looked at the stream 200 meters away, at the canal, at the water wheel turning slowly, unburdened. He asked what the wheel was for. Wayne replied that they were grinding grain. The man asked where the millstones were. Silence. A second. 2. Wayne replied that they were broken, being repaired. The man smiled. Not maliciously, not threateningly, wearily, like a man who had heard many bad lies. He said he would return. Then he walked down the road toward the highway, without looking back. Wayne stood and watched his back. Thomas appeared beside him. He was watching too. Then he said quietly, 3 weeks, maximum. Wayne asked, until what? Thomas replied, until the Inquisitors. If this man reports that he saw the wheel and the oil and the smithy that earns as much as magicians, the guild will send an inspection, a real one. Wayne turned to Thomas. He asked what had happened in Hallmark between the scout and the Inquisitors. Thomas replied, 4 weeks. The scout came, looked around, left. 4 weeks later, 3 men in red cloaks arrived, with a detachment of soldiers, 20 men. The residents were given an hour to gather their belongings. Then they set it on fire. Everything, the houses, the mill, the people who didn't leave. Wayne asked why the people hadn't left. Thomas replied that it was because they didn't believe it. No one believes they'll be burned, until the very last second. Wayne was silent. Then he said they had 3 weeks. Thomas corrected him. 3 at most. Maybe 2. Wayne nodded. Then he went back to the smithy. He pulled a notebook from under the bench. It was his personal notebook, leather-bound, pages made of pressed paper he'd made himself. It contained plans, annual, 5-year, 10-year. He crossed them all out. He wrote a new plan. 3 weeks. The goal: to make the workshop indispensable to the baron, to the merchants, to the city, to everyone who buys their products. Indispensable enough that destroying it would cost more than keeping it alive. It was the only way. You can't hide. You can't run away. You can't fight the guild. You can only become too valuable to burn. Wayne slept 4 hours, then got up and gathered everyone. Morning. Fog over the stream. Steam rises mouth. 23 people stood in the remain and watched at him. Wayne didn't lie. He said that the guild knows, that a scout, that they'll be the Inquisitors, that they have 2 or 3 weeks. Silence. Bran, that who crossed himself at the sight of the wheel, took a step back. 2 other employees exchanged glances. Fear. Wayne had saw 300 years of the law, 300 years of executions, heresy mechanisms, the stake. These words were hammered into every peasant from birth. Wayne said that no one is holding, Who wants to leave leaves now. No hard feelings. Salary for the last a week will be paid in full. Bran left, and 20 remain. Mark spat on the floor and said that in mine, the Baron, he risked his life for 3 pennies. Here, although at for the point. Grant nodded. The rest remained silent, but didn't move. The silence was the answer. Wayne began explaining the plan. 3 directions. First, products. We need to flood the market, not Crosstown, Morden, the capital of the barony. Every merchant, every craftsman, every official must have their product. The lock on door, scales on the counter, nails in the walls, hinges on the gate. When the inquisitors come and ask what is this workshop, every other resident in Merdon will say that is buying from them. Destroy the workshop means to leave the city without a supplier. Second, Baron. Zigward receives 25%, that 45 gold per month. In 3 weeks there will be more. Baron will not his money. He will defend source of income. He out of greed. Third, evidence. Wayne said that the guild is pursuing mechanisms, not tools. The line is fine, but it is there. The hammer is a tool. A mill is a tool. A loom is tool. All of them are allowed. Prohibited mechanisms that replace magic. But who draws the boundary? The guild. And guild is people. And people buy locks. Thomas was listening with a stony face. When Wayne finished, he said one thing. In Hallmark, they thought that had important. They traded with 3 cities. The Lord patronized. It help. Wayne replied that he knew, and that the difference won. In Hallmark, they're any plan. They're a mill. They're a lord. There was hope. And plan was. Thomas remained silent. He agreed, didn't objected. He simply remained silent. The work began in that very. Wayne assembled the machines back together. The parts were lifted from the shaft, the blueprints from the floor, chisels, drill bits, gears. By noon the workshop was working. The wheel was spinning. The belts transmitted rotation. The machines hummed, louder than before. Wayne added 2 machines, 10 in lines, 6 in water drive, 4 pedals. A new product. Rena came up with the idea. A tool. Not for the workshop, for people. A hand drill. Simple design. Wooden handle, gear drive, steel drill bit. A carpenter picks up the drill and drills a hole in 30 seconds. No magic, no blacksmith. By himself. Cost price, 3 silver. Selling price, 1 gold. Every carpenter in every city will want one. Vane designed it overnight. The system showed the model. 12 parts, 2 gears, an axle, a chuck, a drill bit, a handle, housing, 5 fasteners. The gear teeth must be highly precise, otherwise the drive will jam. The system's iron standard provided sufficient design accuracy. But the hands were the problem. Wayne could design a gear with an accuracy of 1/10 of a millimeter in his head, but cutting it with such precision by hand was impossible. A gear-cutting machine was needed. A gear-cutting machine. Wayne designed the gear-cutting machine in 2 days. Dividing head, hardened steel cutter, manual feed. Each tooth is cut separately by rotating the workpiece through a fixed angle. Accuracy of 1/10 of a millimeter, sufficient for a hand drill. The system awarded 35 master points for the gear-cutting machine. Iron level 9. Notification. Gear-cutting machine. In your world, it was invented in the 17th century. You're 400 years ahead of this world, or 400 years behind your own. Depends on your point of view. The first batch of drills was assembled in 3 days, 10 of them. Rena took them to Merdon. She returned 2 days later without the drills, with 10 gold pieces, and an order for 50. The carpenters fought for the right to be the first to buy. One of them said it was the best thing he'd held in his hands in 30 years of work. Second front. The Baron. Wayne sent Ella to Sigvard. She brought back a report on the income for the past 2 months. The Baron's share, 45 gold pieces, plus a forecast. At the current rate of growth, in 3 months the Baron's share will be 100 gold pieces a month. In 6 months, 200. Ella said the Baron had read the report twice. Then he asked what he needed to do. Ella replied that nothing, just keep quiet and stay out of the way. The Baron said he knew how to keep quiet, and that if anyone from the guild asked, he would say that the village of Greyhall was an ordinary village, with an ordinary smithy and an ordinary granary. The third area, the law. Wayne spent 3 nights with Rena studying the guild's law on mechanisms. Rena had brought a copy from Myrden, 50 pages on parchment. The law was called the Edict on the Purity of Crafts, enacted 302 years ago. The gist is simple. Any mechanism that replaces magical production is heresy. The creator is subject to execution by burning. The mechanism is subject to destruction. Wayne read the law and looked for loopholes. He found 3. First, the definition of a mechanism. The law defined a mechanism as a device that converts energy to replace magical production. The key word is replace. Wayne wasn't replacing magical production. He was creating an alternative. Mages continued to do their work. He did his. A subtle difference, but a difference nonetheless. Second, the exception for tools. Paragraph 17. Hand tools used by blacksmiths, carpenters, and masons are not subject to the edict. Hammers, saws, chisels. What is a lathe? A carpenter's tool, a large one, but a tool. Third, jurisdiction. The law granted the right to investigate and judge only to the inquisitors of the guild. 3 inquisitors formed the tribunal. The tribunal's decision is final. But, paragraph 41, the accused has the right to 1 item of defense. 1 item that must be examined by the tribunal. If the item is deemed safe, the charges are dropped. 1 item, 1 chance. Wayne thought for 3 days. Then he chose. A lock, a pin tumbler lock. 5 pins, a brass mechanism, an iron casing. The lock does nothing. It doesn't replace magic. It doesn't convert energy. It simply locks the door. Better than a bolt, better than a spell, because a spell costs 5 gold pieces and lasts a year. A lock costs 5 gold pieces and lasts forever. But a lock doesn't replace a spell. It exists alongside it, an alternative, not a replacement. Wayne crafted a single lock, the best, the perfect one. Every detail polished to a mirror finish. Every pin fitted with precision down to 1/100th of a millimeter. Pure brass, iron without a single impurity. When the key turned in the keyhole, the mechanism clicked with a quiet, melodious sound, like a music box, only better. The system assessed it. The item was created. A benchmark pin tumbler lock. Master points plus 50. A bonus for a masterpiece plus 20. Current level, Steel 1. Progress, 22% toward the steam engine. New blueprints, crucible furnace, steel alloys, precision machining. Message, steel level. You are on the threshold of the Industrial Revolution. In your world, it took 1,000 years. You have 2 months, 8 candidates. 1 has reached steel. You are second. He lasted 3 more weeks. I hope you'll be more convincing. Wayne placed the lock on the table. He looked at it. Small, shiny, perfect. It is his shield, his only argument before the tribunal. If they come. When they come. 3rd month began with rain. The stream swelled. The wheel spun faster. There was now for 10 machines. Wayne wasn't happy. He built. Every day a new mechanism, every day new problem, every day they're one day closer to that moment when in the village enter people in red coats. The crucible furnace he assembled in 10 days. Clay crucible. Refractory coating made kaolin and quartz sand. Air from water drive through a pipe with adjustable damper. The temperature 1,500 degrees. Controlled, stable. The first melt of the steel was at night. Wayne loaded the crucible. Iron screech. Wood, charcoal in exact proportions. 1% of carbon. The system showed the temperature in real time. 113, 1400, 1500. Steel flowed, liquid, white, blinding. Wayne looked through the visor made fired clay with a narrow slot. In past life, he worked with steel every day. I saw electric furnaces, converters, rolling mills. Here was a pit and a wooden pipe and stream of metal costing in 10 times less than that mage's. Darren stood beside him. The face was illuminated by light steel. He remained silent, then said quietly that his father and all blacksmiths in the family dreamed of their own steel. They bought from magicians a piece. We saved as gold, but now it flows into his forge, in his village, from his oven. The first steel parts Wayne made from machine tools, guides, axles, bearing bushings. Replacement iron with steel increased the accuracy and the lifespan of machine 4 times. Then steel tools. Cutters with a hardness that iron does reach. Drills that are in oak as in butter. Hammers that don't crack after thousands impacts. Production picked up again. 20 workers in the 3rd shifts. Morning, day, night. Shop never stop. The wheel kept turning. The machines hummed. Hammers pounded. Greyhall stopped to be a village. It became a factory. Ella kept the books. 3 notebooks. Income, expenses, orders. To end the 3rd month, the figures looked like this. Revenue, 210 gold per month. Expenses, 120. Salaries, materials, transportation, the baron's share. Net profit, 90 gold pieces, more than the annual budget of barony. Rena expanded trade, not 2 cities, 4. Crosstown, Murden, Woolhaven, Steinbrook. 4 carts were leaving every week. They returned with gold and orders. The main merchandise had changed. Not nails, not rollers, locks and drills. Everyone bought locks. Merchants for warehouses, townspeople for their homes, officials for their offices. Craftsmen bought drills, carpenters, bricklayers, coopers, leather workers. Everyone who worked with their hands wanted a tool that made the job faster and more precise. A new product appeared every week. Hand clamps with a clamping screw, a plane with an adjustable blade, a steel square with markings, a level with a bubble of air in a glass tube. Each tool was designed by the system and manufactured by the workshop. Each tool was the best that existed in this world, and cheaper than anything the magicians made. Master points flowed like a river. Steel 2, Steel 3, Steel 4. At the 4th level, the complete blueprint for a steam engine was unlocked. 40% progress. Wayne unfolded the blueprint in his mind and didn't move for 3 hours. He sat in the corner of the workshop and stared into space. Watt's steam engine, double acting, with a condenser, with Watt's regulator. Every detail, every dimension, every tolerance. The system showed everything, and it showed that building it now was impossible. Insufficient machining precision. The steam engine cylinder must be bored to an accuracy of 1/10 of a millimeter. Wayne's best result was 5/10, 5 times worse. A boring machine is needed. For a boring machine, a metal lathe is needed. Not for wood, for metal. A metal lathe requires precision-machined hardened steel guides. Precision machining requires a grinding machine with a diamond wheel, or at least a corundum one. Corundum, Wayne remembered. In the third week, when he scanned the ore from the mine, the system detected an impurity. Corundum, aluminum oxide, hardness 9 on the Mohs scale, second only to diamond. The impurity was negligible, 0.2% in the ore, but if sorted, if washed, if collected, he told Mark. Mark said there was rock of a different color at the lower face, pinkish. He thought it was barren. Wayne asked for a sample. The system checked it. Corundum, 12% content. It was a vein, not iron. Corundum. Wayne couldn't remember the last time he'd smiled, but he smiled. Mark asked what it was. Wayne replied that it was the future. It took a week to mine and process the corundum, washing, crushing, sorting by size, binding with clay slurry, firing. A corundum grinding wheel, a hardness impossible for this world. With wheels like these, steel can be ground like wood. Wayne mounted the corundum wheel on the grinding machine. He started the water drive. The wheel spun. He brought the steel blank close. Sparks. A screech. The steel was cut away in even layers. Accuracy to 1/10 of a millimeter. The very same. The one needed for a steam engine. The system flashed. The mechanism is complete. A precision grinding machine with a corundum wheel. Master level +60. Steel level 5. 50% progress toward the steam engine. Message. Halfway there. A corundum grinding machine in a world without electricity. In your world, something like this existed in the 1800s. You're doing this in a shed next to the chicken coop. The previous candidate didn't make it to steel level 5. You're the first. Don't get your hopes up. The hardest part is still ahead. Wayne didn't delude himself. He began building a metal lathe, a steel bed, corundum finished guides, a lead screw with trapezoidal threads, a carriage with cross and longitudinal feed, an 18th century design. In a world where people lived in the 13th century, he built it in 2 weeks. During the day, he oversaw production. At night, he worked on the lathe. Rena said again that he would kill himself. Wayne replied that it would take 2 weeks. Then he would catch up on sleep. Rena replied that that's what everyone says before they collapse. Wayne didn't collapse, but on the 12th day he fell asleep standing at the lathe. Mark picked him up and carried him to a bench. Wayne slept for 10 hours, the first time in a month. When he woke up, Darren was standing over him. He said Thomas had finished the lathe. Wayne got up. He went to the workshop. The lathe was in place. Solid steel, heavy, precise. Thomas was sitting nearby on a crate, drinking water. His hands weren't shaking. Wayne checked the lathe through the system. The guide accuracy was 1/10 of a millimeter. Spindle runout was 2/100ths. The lead screw was flawless. Perfect. He looked at Thomas. He was the best lathe in the world. Thomas replied that it was the only machine of its kind in the world, that the best and the only one were one and the same. And he smiled. It was a joke. Thomas's first joke in 40 years. By the end of the 3rd month, Grayhall's workshop looked like this. 12 machines, a foundry, a crucible furnace, a shaft with 2 working faces, a water wheel, a canal. 3 workshops in 3 buildings, 25 workers, 4 trade routes, revenue of 210 gold pieces, steel grade 5, halfway to the steam engine. Wayne stood on a hill above the village and looked down. Smoke from the furnaces, the clang of hammers, the hum of the machines, the wheel turning, people moving between the workshops. It was a factory, a real one, the first in this world, and somewhere beyond the horizon, 3 men in red cloaks were already saddling their horses. They had come on Thursday. Rena saw first. She was from Meriden, with an cart and full purse. When on way, I noticed a detachment. 3 riders in front, red cloaks, silver buckles. Behind them 20 soldiers in chainmail, on foot, with spears and swords. The deck of the Junction of Mages, eye and triangle on black canvas. Rena turned her and rode toward Greyhall. 2 kilometers. She drove them in 7 minutes. I sped into the village with a scream that are coming. Wayne stood by the crucible furnace. He was checking the temperature of the den when he heard Rena's coming. Rena calmly closed the shutter. He looked at Thomas. Thomas turned pale. Not out of fear. From memory. 40 years ago he saw one same detachment. With such coats. With such same banner. Wayne approached to him. He placed his hand on his shoulder. He said that in this time, it be... Thomas didn't answer. Wayne gathered the family. Darren, Ella, Mark, Rena, Thomas. They stood in the smithy. 5 minutes talking talk. Then we'll come. Wayne said that hide nothing we... Darren looked at him. Ella opened her mouth. Mark clenched his fists. Wayne repeated, nothing to... We'll show everything, every machine, every furnace, every wheel. That is why that hiding means to admit guilt. And they are guilty. They are tools, not mechanisms, tools. Thomas said that the inquisitors it anyway, whether to it. Wayne replied that not it the same, because that the law is written in words, and words have meaning. Paragraph 17. Hand tools are subject the edict. Paragraph 1. Definition of the mechanism. That converts energy for replace magical production. They do replace. They complement. Mages do their own. Blacksmiths do their work, Rena added. 132 merchants in 4 cities buy products. If the workshop is burned down, all they will lose the supplier. This is quiet mill on outskirts, this commercial chain. Ella nodded. The Baron received a total of 120 gold for 3 months. He did remain. Wayne said that everyone were right. But all this won't save if the Inquisitors decide to burn. The law gives the right to 1 item of protection, 1 chance. He unlocked lock, a standard one, the 1. Brilliant. Perfect. If the tribunal recognizes the lock, safe the workshop under protection. If not, Wayne didn't finish. No need. The squad entered into Greyhall through an hour after Rena's Rena. The village froze. People hid in there. The shutters were shut. Even the dogs didn't bark. 300 years of fear. 3 horsemen dismounted at the tavern. Berger ran to meet them. He bowed, stammered. The first inquisitor was tall. He was 50. Gray beard, eyes like 2 nails, gray, sharp, cold. Name, Supreme Inquisitor Cross. Second below, younger, years 30, smooth face, thin lips, seal of the aft-on glove. Inquisitor Malik. The third, old, very old, hunchbacked, small, hands like bird's paws, but in there is fire. Inquisitor Archivist Dorn, that who knows the law by heart. Cross didn't waste time, asked Berger where the smithy that makes things instead of mages. Berger showed with a trembling hand. They went to workshop. 20 soldiers lined up along the street. People looked from behind shutters. Wayne waited at the entrance to the workshop. 1. Darren wanted to stand beside him. Wayne said no. That his business, his workshop, his responsibility. Cross stopped in 3 steps. He looked at Wayne, then at the blues for his back. Smoke from the crucible furnace, the clatter of the machines, the hum of the water drive. Cross said that, based on a citizen's report and the results of a preliminary investigation by a guild agent, activities falling under the edict on the purity of crafts were being carried out on this site. And that, as the Supreme Inquisitor, he was authorized to conduct an inspection and issue a ruling. Wayne replied that he understood, and that he was ready to show them everything. Cross raised an eyebrow. Malik, to his right, smirked. Dorn took out a small book with a black cover and began taking notes. They entered the workshop. Cross walked slowly. He looked. He touched. He checked. The first machine. A lathe. A foot-powered one. Wood. Cross watched as a worker turned a roller. He asked what it was. Wayne replied that it was a tool for working with wood. The principle was the same as that of a potter's wheel. The workpiece rotates. The cutter removes a layer. Cross asked what magic had to do with it. Wayne replied that it had nothing to do with it. Magic was neither used nor replaced here. A carpenter makes a roller by hand in 3 hours. On the machine, it takes 10 minutes. But it's the same roller, made from the same wood, by the same hands, just faster. Cross didn't answer. He walked on. The forging press. Cross looked at the lever, at the hammer, at the anvil. He asked how it worked. Darren showed him. He pressed the lever. The hammer struck. Cross asked what the difference was from a regular hammer. Darren replied that the hammer was heavier, but the hand was the same. Cross nodded. Malik walked through the workshop, peering into every corner. His eyes were hungry. He was looking for a flaw. He wanted to find one. Wayne saw it. Malik stopped by the water drive. Belts ran from the wall to 3 machines. He traced the belts back to the wall. Behind the wall was a wheel. Malik went outside. He looked at the wheel, at the canal, at the stream. He came back. He told Cross that there was a water mechanism here. A drive from the water wheel to the machines. Energy conversion. This falls under the edict. Wayne had been expecting this. He calmly replied that water mills had existed for 400 years and had never been recognized as a violation of the edict. The wheel grinds grain, or turns a machine. The principle is the same. Water power. Permitted by paragraph 17 as a tool of the miller and the blacksmith. Malik objected that a mill grinds grain, but here the machines make goods. The difference is fundamental. Dorn coughed. He opened his book. He leafed through it, found the page, read paragraph 17 aloud. Hand tools and devices of blacksmiths, carpenters, masons, millers, and other artisans approved by the Guild Register are not subject to the provisions of this edict, regardless of the source of the driving force. Malik froze. Regardless of the source of the driving force. That phrase had been written 300 years ago. Back then, it meant that a blacksmith could use a water hammer and a miller a water mill. No one had imagined that someone would install a water wheel to power 10 machines. But the law is the law, and words have meaning. Cross looked at Dorn. Dorn shrugged. The law is clear. Malik pressed his lips together. Then he said that even if the machines are tools, the products replace magical production. Locks replace spells. Scales replace magical measurements. This is a violation of paragraph 1, Wayne replied. Paragraph 1. A device that converts energy to replace magical production. A device, not a product. A lock is not a device. A lock is a product, an object, a thing. It is made by a person on a machine. A machine is a tool. A person is a craftsman. A product is a commodity. None of these words fall under the word device. Malik blushed. He wanted to object. Cross raised his hand. Silence. Then Cross asked Wayne if he had a defensive item. Paragraph 41. Wayne took out the lock, placed it on the table in front of Cross. Shiny. Perfect. Cross picked up the lock, turned it, tried to open it. He couldn't. Wayne handed him the key. Cross turned it. A click. Quiet. Melodic. Cross opened it, closed it, opened it, looked inside. Pins, springs, brass cylinders. He didn't understand how it worked, but he understood that it worked. He handed it to Malik. Malik examined it. He shook it, threw it on the table. The lock didn't open. He picked it up, tried to break it with his hands, couldn't. Passed it to Dorn. Dorn put on a pair of small glasses, examined every detail, turned the key, listened to the click, then took a small crystal from his bosom, held it up to the lock. The crystal remained dark. Dorn said there was no magic. None. Not a trace. Not a remnant. It was pure craftsmanship. Cross looked at Wayne for a long time. Then he asked who had taught him. Wayne replied that he had taught himself, by watching his father work, by studying materials, by thinking. Cross asked if Wayne knew that the last craftsman found guilty under the edict had been burned at the stake in the village of Hallmark 40 years ago, along with 300 residents. Wayne replied that he knew. Cross asked if he was still building anyway. Wayne replied, yes, because a lock on a door is not heresy. It is protection. Because a nail in the wall is not heresy, it is construction. Because a drill in a carpenter's hand is not heresy, it is work. And if the guild thinks otherwise, let them explain to the 132 merchants in the 4 cities why their supplier was burned at the stake for making nails better than the mages. Silence. Malik flushed. Dorn was taking notes in his book. Cross didn't move. Then Cross said the tribunal was retiring for a consultation. The deliberation lasted 4 hours. They sat in tavern behind closed doors. Greyhall waited. Wayne waited. He sat on a bench by the smithy and didn't move. Ella brought some water. He didn't drink. Darren stood in the doorway of the troop and looked at Tavern, the hammer in his hand. Not because that was to fight, because that the blacksmith without a hammer is a blacksmith. Mark sat on the ground and coughed into his sleeve, quietly, as usual. Rena stood by the cart and was counting something in her mind. Probably options. What to if they say yes? What do if they say no? What do if they have to burn it? Thomas left to his house. He closed the door. He didn't go out. Wayne understood. 40 years ago, Thomas was sitting just, waiting just, and waited the fire. The workers stood in groups. They were silent, 20 people. Each of them knew that if the tribunal decides that the workshop is heresy, then is not just Wayne. It's everyone who worked, everyone who knew, everyone who helped. In Hallmark, they were the village, not only the miller. 4 hours. The sun had passed the zenith and began to descend. The shadows grew longer. The temperature dropped. Autumn evening in Greyhall smells smoke and damp earth and fear. The door of the trade opened. The first to come out, Malik, his was stony. His eyes were angry. Then Dorn, small, hunchbacked, with a book under arm. Then Cross, high, straight, red raincoat like a blush of blood against the gray walls. They walked toward the workshop. Wayne stood up. He walked toward him. They met in the middle of the village street. Mud under my feet. The sky is gray. 20 soldiers stood along the houses. The village was watching from windows and doors and from corners. Cross stopped in front of Wayne. He took out the parchment, unfolded it. He began to read. His voice was steady, no warmth nor cold, the voice of the law. He read the description of the property. Blacksmith workshop with expanded production in the village Greyhall of the Zigward. Read the composition of the equipment. 10 devices for wood, and metal with foot-operated and water-cooled drive. 1 melting furnace of the type. 1 crucible furnace for smelting steel. Water wheel with belt drive. Read the charges. Suspected violation of the edict on the purity of crafts. Creation and operation of mechanisms replacing magical production. Then read the results of the examination of the object in question. Pin lock. 5 locking elements. Brass mechanism. Iron casing. No magical components. No energy conversion mechanism. Classification. Handcrafted item. Then the verdict. Wayne wasn't breathing. No one in Greyhall was breathing. The tribunal's verdict. 2-1. The subject of the defense is deemed safe. The workshop's products are classified as artisanal goods. The equipment is classified as artisans' tools, in accordance with paragraph 17 of the Edict on the Purity of Crafts. The charges are dropped. The workshop may continue its operations. Wayne exhaled, slowly, quietly. Behind him, one of the workers gasped. Ella grabbed Rena by the hand. Darren lowered his hammer. But Cross wasn't finished. He added, "A dissenting opinion from Inquisitor Malik. Malik believes that the workshop's activities fall under a broad interpretation of paragraph 1 and pose a threat to magical production. The dissenting opinion is attached to the minutes and will be sent to the Guild Council for further consideration." Wayne understood. 2 against 1. Cross and Dorn voted in favor, Malik against. The charges are dropped. But Malik won't let it rest. He'll send the report to the Guild Council, to the capital, where the archmages and treasurers and strategists sit. People who don't check locks with their fingers. People who calculate market share and lost revenue and the threat to the monopoly. It wasn't a victory. It was a reprieve. Cross rolled up the parchment. He looked at Wayne. Then he pulled him aside, 2 steps away from the others, far enough that no one could hear. Cross said quietly that he had voted in favor because the law was on Wayne's side. Formally. The letter of the law. But the spirit of the law was written by mages for mages, and that the Guild Council wouldn't get bogged down in the fine print. The council would see the numbers. 200 gold pieces a month, 132 merchants, 4 cities. And it would see a threat. Not to the workshop, not to the castles, not to the nails, to the system. The entire system upon which the Guild has stood for 300 years. And that when the council decides to act, it won't send inquisitors, it will send an army. Wayne asked how much time. Cross replied that Malik's report would reach the council in 2 weeks. The council would debate it for a month, maybe 2, maybe longer. The council is slow, bureaucracy, but a decision will be made, and it will be final. Wayne asked what he could do. Cross looked at him, for a long time. Then he said he could grow, faster than the council makes decisions, because the only thing the council fears more than heresy is losing control. And they lose control when a problem becomes too big to burn. Then Cross put on his gloves, mounted his horse. The squad set off down the road. Malik rode off first. He didn't look back. Dorn lingered. He walked over to Wayne. He took a small bundle out of his pocket. He placed it in Wayne's hand. He said it was a gift. Then he mounted his horse and rode off. Wayne unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a copy of the Edict on the Purity of Crafts, the complete version, all 50 paragraphs, with commentaries and precedents spanning 300 years, marginal notes in Dorn's handwriting, 8 paragraphs underlined, 8 loopholes that Wayne hadn't found. He stood there looking at the parchment. Dorn, the old archivist. He had voted in favor and left a cheat sheet. Why? Wayne didn't know, but he accepted it. That evening, the village celebrated. The tavern stayed open until midnight. Berger put out a barrel of beer on the house. The workers drank and laughed. Ella danced with Rena. Mark sat in the corner and smiled. For the first time in years, Darren drank in silence. He drank heavily. Then he hugged Wayne with one arm and said nothing. Thomas didn't show up. Wayne found him at home. The old man was sitting at the table, a candle, blueprints, a piece of chalk in his hand. His eyes were red. Wayne asked if everything was all right. Thomas said there had been a tribunal in Hallmark, too, the day before the fire. 3 inquisitors, an inspection, a consultation, a verdict, guilty. And an hour later, the village was burning. Wayne replied that here the verdict was different, not guilty. Thomas looked at him, said that not guilty was just a word. But fire was fire. Words burn faster than wood. Then Thomas put down the chalk. He looked at his drawings, a water turbine, a windmill, a crane, a gear mechanism. 40 years of work, thousands of hours. Not a single drawing had become reality, until today. Thomas said quietly that it didn't matter what happened next. He had seen his drawings in action. The wheel turns, the machines hum, steel flows. He saw it with his own eyes, and that was enough. Even if fire came tomorrow. Wayne replied that fire wouldn't come. Thomas smiled, the same smile as on the first day, bitter and warm at the same time. Then he said, "Go to sleep. Tomorrow we build." Wayne left, but he didn't sleep. He sat in the workshop. The system was silent. The drawing board was empty. He thought. Cross had said to grow faster than the council makes decisions. That meant he had 2 or 3 months, maybe 4. In that time, he had to do what none of the 7 previous candidates had done: build a steam engine. The 4th month. Wayne worked like ever before. The system tracked the progress. 50% to the engine. You need to find the remaining 50. Each percent is new mechanism, a new detail, new technology. Boring machine. Cylinder. Cylinder engine must be perfectly round on the inside. The accuracy, 1/10 millimeter. Wayne built a boring for 5 days. Horizontal bar with a cutter. Rotation from water drive. Feed manual. Slow. Precise. First cylinder came out with 0.02 millimeters. Better than necessary. The system plus 20 points. 50%. Piston. Cast iron. Lapped to the cylinder. Clearance 0.5 millimeters. Less the thickness a hair. Wayne cast into a crucible furnace. Added carbon until 3%. Melted. Poured into the from-fired clay. It cooled 12 hours. Then drilling. Grinding. Lapping with paste. 3 days at 1 piston. System plus 30 points. 60%. Valve system. 2 valves. Intake and exhaust. Spool distribution. The slide moves forward and back, opening and closing channels for steam, automatically, without manual control. In Wayne's off was James Watt in the year 769. Here he was Wayne in barn by the oil lamp. The plus 25. 65%. Crank connecting rod mechanism. Converts reciprocating motion of the piston into rotary rotational of the shaft. Connecting rod made steel. Crank made steel. Flywheel made cast iron. Heavy, 120 kilograms. Mark and Grant were lifting at the 4 of them. The system plus 20, 70%. Capacitor. Separate chamber where the spent vapor is cooled and is converted back into water. This invention doubled the efficiency of the engine in the point. Without a capacitor, the steam is cooled directly in cylinder and removes heat from the walls. From condenser, the cylinder is always hot. The point is always running. The system plus 30, 80%. Boiler, copper, riveted. Pressure 2 atmospheres, not more. Safety. In the point, of courting chamber, the first steam boilers exploded regularly. He couldn't afford an explosion. Not technically. Not politically. A boiler explosion in a village is an argument for the Guild Council that outweighs any regulation. A safety valve. A Bourdon tube pressure gauge. A water gauge. 3 safety systems. Triple protection. Darren built the boiler. His finest work. Hand-forged copper sheets. Every rivet seam checked by Wayne through the system. Not a single microcrack. Not a single void. Not a single defect. Darren forged the copper and sang, softly. An old blacksmith song that his father and his father's father had sung. Wayne listened and felt something tighten in his chest. He remembered the factory in Dortmund. Sterile, automated, impersonal. Here, every detail is made by hand, by the hands of people he knows by name, who trust him, who risk their lives because he said it had to be done. System plus 40, 90%. Watt regulator, centrifugal. 2 balls on levers rotate with the shaft. The faster the rotation, the higher the balls rise. The levers are connected to the steam supply valve. The balls rise. The valve closes. Less steam. RPMs drop. The balls descend. The valve opens. More steam. RPMs rise. Automatic speed control. No human, no magic. Physics. Just physics. System plus 50. 100%. The steam engine blueprint is complete. Wayne stood in the workshop, looking at the parts laid out on the floor. Cylinder, piston, valve box, connecting rod, crank, flywheel, condenser, boiler, regulator, frame, pipes, fasteners. 214 parts, each one made in this workshop. From ore mined in this mine, steel smelted in this furnace, on machines built in this barn. The assembly took 3 days. Wayne and Thomas. Just the two of them. No one else was allowed in. Every bolt tightened to the right torque. Every gasket coated with red lead. Every seam checked. Thomas worked in silence. His hands were rock solid, not a single unnecessary movement. 70 years old, 40 years of waiting, and now he was assembling the machine he'd been drawing in his head his whole life. Not his blueprint, Wayne's. But Thomas understood every detail, every principle, every connection. He was an engineer, a real one, without a system, without a second life, without hints, just an engineer. By the evening of the third day, the engine stood on a stone foundation in a separate room that Mark and the workers had built in a week. Brick walls, stone floor, a wooden roof with a chimney, a water tank nearby. A firebox under the boiler, a pipe up to the ceiling. Wayne stood in front of the machine. The engine was the size of a large wardrobe, black with soot and oil. The copper boiler gleamed. The flywheel was heavy and immovable. Silence. Wayne asked everyone to leave. Everyone left, except Thomas. Thomas said that if this thing blew up, let it blow up with him right there, because he'd been waiting for this for 40 years and wasn't going to watch from behind a door. Wayne didn't argue. He lit the furnace. Firewood, coal. The flames caught. The system displayed the water temperature in the boiler. 20 degrees, 40, 60, 80, 90, 100. Steam. Pressure. 0.5 atmospheres. Not enough. 0.8. 1. 1.5. Enough. Wayne opened the steam valve. Steam gushed into the cylinder. The piston twitched, moved a centimeter. 2. 5. The connecting rod pulled the crankshaft. The flywheel twitched, swung. It turned a degree. 2. 10. 90. 180. 360. A full turn. 2. 3. Faster. The flywheel picked up speed. The regulator raised the balls. The damper closed. The speed stabilized. 40 revolutions per minute. A steady, measured rhythm. Puff, 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 puff. A sound this world had never heard before. Wayne stood and listened. Thomas stood beside him. His face was wet. Not from steam. He was crying. Silently. Without wiping away his tears. 70 years. 40 years of drawings into the void. 300 dead. A well of hot water. Years of silence. And now this. The machine. It works. Without magic. Without spells. Without aristocrats and priests and guild masters. It works. The system exploded with messages. The mechanism is complete. A double-acting steam engine with a condenser. Master points plus 500. Mithril level 1. Progress 100%. Steam engine complete. A new horizon has opened. The Industrial Revolution. Next goal. Electricity. A message below. A long one. No sarcasm. For the first time. Candidate number 8. You did what none of the previous 7 did. You built a steam engine. In a world without electricity, without science, without universities, in a village of 200 people, with a lame father and a brother who coughs up blood and a sister who calculates faster in her head than a calculator. You built the future. I don't know what will happen next, but for the first time in 8 attempts, I think this might work. Don't let your guard down. The world isn't ready yet, but you are, and that's enough. Wayne shut down the system. He opened the door. People were standing outside. Everyone. 25 workers, family, Rena, Berger, half the village. They heard the sound. Puff, 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 puff. Nothing like it. Not a mill, not a hammer, not the wind, not water. A new sound. The sound of the future. Wayne said, "Come in." The rumors reached to the capital in 3 weeks. Not from Malik, from the merchants. Carts from Grey Hallas began appearing in 5 cities, then in 8, then in 12. Locks, drills, scales, tools that hadn't existed before. And at half the price of magical ones. Then new goods appeared. Steel pipes, sheet metal, wire. Things that previously only a 4th circle mage could make for 20 gold pieces. Now a village of 200 people made them for 2 silver pieces. The steam engine changed everything. The wheel produced 3 horsepower. The engine produced 20. Wayne connected it to the workshop's main shaft via a belt drive. All 12 machines were powered by a single drive. Then 16. Then 20. New machines were built every week. A rolling mill, a wire drawing mill, a sheet metal press. Every mechanism that had taken centuries to develop in Wayne's world appeared here in a matter of days. Because Wayne understood the principle. The system provided the blueprints. The workshop provided the labor. The staff grew to 40 people, then to 50. People came from neighboring villages. They heard that in Greyhall they paid a silver coin a day. They heard that machines were operating there that no one had ever seen. They heard that the lame blacksmith Darren made steel better than the mages. Rena created a training system. Every new worker spent a week alongside an experienced one. They watched. They learned. Then they took a test. Wayne devised the tests, simple ones. Turn a roller with a tolerance of 0.5 millimeter. Drill a hole exactly in the center. Harden the cutter according to the instructions. Those who passed stayed. Those who didn't passed on without hard feelings. 8 out of 10 passed. The village was changing physically. New houses, stone ones, not clay and straw, stone and tile. The workshop made the tiles. The first batch. 500 pieces. Then 1,000 a week. The roads were paved with stone that Mark hauled up from the mine. A well with a new pump, hand-operated, piston-driven. Wayne built it in a day. The water rose effortlessly. The children turned the handle and laughed. Ella opened a shop in Merdan, a permanent one. She hired 2 salespeople. Goods were delivered twice a week. Revenue was 30 gold pieces a day. Rena opened a second shop in Wohlhofen, then a third in Steinbruck. 4 sales locations. 500 merchant customers. Income exceeded 500 gold pieces a month. The Baron's share was 125. Baron Sigurd came once a month. He counted the money. He inspected the workshops. He shook his head. Every time he said he didn't understand how it worked, but let it keep working. The 6th month. A steam-powered mechanical hammer. A blow 10 times stronger than any blacksmith's. Darren stood before it and watched as the hammer struck the red-hot steel. Sparks flew up to the ceiling. The floor shook. The walls hummed. Darren said that this hammer did in a minute what used to take him an hour. Then he fell silent. Then he said he wasn't needed anymore. Wayne turned around. He said that Darren was needed more than any machine in this workshop. Because a machine doesn't think. A machine doesn't feel the metal. A machine doesn't know when to strike harder and when to strike softer. A machine is a tool. Darren is a master, and a master is always needed. Darren didn't answer, but he stood up straight. His lame leg didn't stop him from standing tall. Between the 6th and 8th months, the Greyhall factory became a fact that couldn't be disputed. 12 workshops, a mine with 3 working faces, 2 furnaces, a steam engine, 40 machines, 50 workers, 5 retail outlets in 5 cities, 1,000 gold pieces a month in revenue. A village of 200 destitute peasants had become an industrial hub. People wore clean clothes. They ate meat every day. The children attended the school Rena had opened. Yes, a school. Rena said that without literate workers, the factory would die out within a generation. Wayne agreed. Rena hired a teacher from Merdan. 20 children, reading, arithmetic, the basics of mechanics. Basics that didn't exist in any school in this world because schools for commoners didn't exist. Mark stopped coughing up blood. Wayne couldn't explain it. Mark no longer went down into the Baron's mine. He ran his own mine, clean, ventilated, with wooden supports every 2 meters, with masks made of oil-soaked cloth. Mark breathed clean air for the first time in 10 years, and his lungs began to heal. Slowly. But they began. And then a letter arrived. A courier on a foaming horse. The seal of the Mages Guild Council. Red wax. An eye and a triangle. Wayne opened the envelope. He read it. He read it again. The Council of the Mages Guild decrees, in connection with the activities of the workshop in the village of Greyhall in the barony of Zigward, which violate the spirit of the edict on the purity of crafts and pose a threat to the established magical order of production. The Council is dispatching Archmage Walter Rain as its authorized representative to conduct a final inspection with the authority to take any measures, including the shutdown of production and the arrest of those responsible. Arrival date, 14 days. Wayne placed the letter on the table. He looked out the window. The workshops were smoking, the machines were humming, the hammer was pounding. 50 people were working. A steam engine puffed behind the wall. Steadily, evenly, like a heart. 14 days, not inquisitors, an archmage, not a tribunal, an authorized representative with the right to take any measures. This is the end, or the beginning. Wayne picked up the letter. He went to Thomas. Thomas read the letter and did say a word. He put the parchment on the table, smoothed with my palm, then stood up and began put together the blueprints. Wayne asked what he was. Thomas replied, "That is hiding something that can hide. Just in case, if have to run." Wayne said that run. We. Thomas stopped. He looked at him with a look that is in people who have how people, living people, and said that heroism is luxury for those who doesn't remember the smell of flesh. Wayne replied that he remembers. Not flesh, metal, hot oil, sparks from press that killed him, and that he wasn't a hero. He an engineer, and an engineer's has plan. In 14 days made 3 things. First, he wrote letters. 27 letters. To each major merchant who purchased products from Greyhall. In every letter one and the of the once close the workshop. If they close, locks will be, drills will be, weights will be, instruments will, available. Prices for magical products will rise, that is, that competition there be. Ella and Rena delivered letters 5 days. The replies began come on the 3rd day. The of Crosstown wrote that will file a protest to the of the kingdom. Furniture maker Olson's is very buyer wrote that his workshop entirely depends on supplies from Greyhall and the closure will ruin it. 17 merchants from Merdan signed a collective petition to the magistrate. 12 artisans from Volkhaufen wrote in letter. 500 signatures for a week. Merchants, artisans, carpenters, masons, cooper, all who held in there a tool from Greyhall. The second thing. Baron Zigward. Ella went to him in person. She brought the report for 8 months. Total income of the Baron from the workshop, 700 gold pieces. Forecast is the year 2000. Ella said that if the workshop is closed, the Baron will lose more than earned over the 10 years. The Baron remained silent. Then he asked why Ella wanted. Ella replied that she wants for the Baron to come to Greyhall on day of the inspection. In person. From my coat of arms and his security and his title, and stood beside with Wayne. The Baron thought for a day, then sent a reply. One word. I will. The third thing. Wayne was preparing a demonstration. Not defense. Not an excuse. A demonstration. He gathered every product that he made over 8 months. Nails, rollers, locks, drills, scales, vices, planers, levels, set squares, pipes, wire, sheet metal, roof tiles, 116 items. Each piece is polished, marked, disassembled on wooden shelves in main workshop, and in center on stone foundation, under roof made brick. Steam engine. Wayne didn't hide it. He put it as exhibit. He polished the copper pot until a mirror shine. Steel parts lubricated and wiped down. Flywheel polished. The regulator painted black. The car was like a monument, like an altar, like a challenge. Archmage Walter Rhine arrived on 14th day, exactly on time, not at end, in carriage, black with gold trim, a horses, 10 soldiers in full armor, not chainmail, plate armor, magical runes on shoulder guards, elite. By the carriage there one cart, a covered one. What inside Wayne didn't know. Rain went out from the carriage, short, heavy set, in his 60, round face, small eyes behind in gold frame. Hands are soft, well-groomed. A person's of a man who never has held a hammer. On the chain with a medallion council, 3 eyes in a triangle, highest rank. Rain inspected the village, slowly. Stone houses, cobblestone roads, smoke from stoves, people in clean clothes, school, a bench, tavern that was open every day. He saw Baron Zigward. Zigward was standing by the smithy in a jacket, with coat of arms, with 2 guards. Rain looked at the Baron. The Baron nodded. Rain did nod in response. The archmages do not nod to the barons. The barons nod to the archmages. Then Rain saw Wayne. He looked at him, for a long time, like a scientist looks at an unusual specimen in the collection. I asked this one that young man who is cars. Wayne replied that builds tools. Rain smiled. He said that he wanted to see. Wayne took him to workshop. Not in main one. First to the first one, the old barn, where it began. Lathes, foot-powered, wooden, simple. Rain was watching. Then in second shop, metalworking, drilling, grinding, gear cutting, rain tapping machines, turned the hand wheels. He checked the cutters. I was silent. Then in foundry, domnitsa, crucible furnace, ore, coal, slag, steel. The Rhine took ingot of steel. He turned it over in his hands. He took out from his a small crystal. I pressed against steel. The crystal darkened. Rain frowned. He pressed again. The crystal became transparent. There is gone. Not trace. Pure steel. Smelted without a single spell. Rain placed the bar back. His face nothing expressed, but Wayne saw how he clenched his jaw, by 0.5 millimeter, barely noticeable. Then the workshop. Shelving with products. 16 items. The Rhine flowed along the shelves. He picked items. I checked them. The lock. Opened. Closed. Scales. I placed the weight. The pointer stopped exactly. Drill. Drilled a hole in the board. Straight, clean, level. I placed on table. A small bottle in the center. Perfect. Rain stopped. He turned toward Wayne. He said that impressed. His voice was steady, without emotion. Then he asked, what at end of the hall? Wayne led him to the engine. Rain stood in front of the machine and didn't move. He was looking at top hat, at flywheel, at boiler, to pipes, for the regulator with 2 balls on levers. He asked what it was. Wayne replied, steam engine, a machine that converts heat into motion. The water boils, steam presses on the piston rotates the shaft drives the machines. Without magic, without spells, without runes and crystals and mantras, fire and water and metal, nothing. Rain was silent for a minute, then said, "Go ahead." Wayne lit the furnace. He waited. The system showed pressure. 1 atmosphere. 1.5. Wayne opened the valve. Steam gushed out. The piston moved. The flywheel swayed. It turned, gained speed. Chug, 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 chug. The workshop filled with sound. The belts tightened. The machines came to life. 20 machines at once. From one machine. Rain stood in front of the engine. The light from the furnace played on his face. His behind the lenses reflected flame. He held out his hand. He touched the cylinder. It was hot. I pulled it away. Then I touched the flywheel. Warm, vibrating, alive. Rain turned toward Wayne. His face changed. Not anger, not fear, not disgust. Something else.
Exclusive videos, story continuations, and bonus content are already available on Patreon before YouTube, so check the link in the description for early access to all new recaps and continuations.